Shalom, brothers and sisters, warriors of Yahuwah and the truth. I hope everyone is doing well, and I did just make another video, and I felt like I should make another one. My husband's working, so I should continue to do the work of Yah. And to continue what I was saying at the end of my last video, I did make a comment in a Christian college forum about Nazarene and Yahuwah and the true name, and I even went into depth and explained people in modern times here, even ever, nobody has ever translated someone's name. If someone's name is Ava in Spanish, then it's going to be Ava in English. Nobody transliterates or translates somebody's name. So why would we do that to our Creator? And I feel like I planted a seed there. And I feel like I'm going to be compelling some Christians to come and become a Nazarene. I am praying that I planted a seed. Because I did end up getting like 3 or 4 more followers today. I had posted my YouTube channel on there, letting them know that what I talk about and stuff like that. And I hope I got some more people to start to wake up, come out of her, my people. And I'm going to continue reading Fossilized Customs. The next section is the test of Manna, of the manna. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, or Moses, "See, I am raining bread, manna, from the heavens for you. And the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, in order to try or test them, whether they walk in my Torah or not. And it shall be on the 6th day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily." Exodus 16:4 and 5. Crafty schemes to divide us. The elect can be deceived and fall away from the covenant by crafty schemes and trickery. The elect can be deceived, and yes, I read that. Sorry, guys. We should no longer be children tossed and borne about by every wind of teaching, by the trickery of men in cleverness, unto the craftiness of leading astray. Ephesians 4:14. Ephesians 4 reminds that while we grow toward a unity, oneness of belief and pattern for living, we have to be patient, humble, meek, and bearing with one another in love. We will have to tolerate differences with patience and not grow apart in bitterness. Yahusha said we would be known by the love between us. It's okay. Not that we would all be exactly alike. The blind faith of those captured by the mother of harlots, Catholicism, may never be able to overcome the deceptions until they personally study and struggle to get at the truth. We all must study. The new teachings which are entangling the Nazarene today come from interpretations of Scripture, which alter the patterns of days, nights, and appointed times ruled by the new moons. Some interpret day or yom and night Layla somewhat differently than others. Reading Genesis, some have come to believe that creation began with light. Therefore, the 24-hour period begins at sunrise. In contrast, the end of the day, which arrives at the moment the sun sets, beginning a new cycle of 24 hours, actually reflects the 6 creation days. At creation, it was first dark, meaning the day starts at sunset. And Yahuwah created water, or mayim, and earth, eretz, and the rules of physics. Kepha, or Peter, tells us that the earth was formed out of water, or mayim. Darkness was on the face of the deep. The first sentence of Genesis states, "In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth, the shamayim and the eretz. And the earth came to be formless and empty, and darkness was on the face of the deep." So that means the day begins at sunset. The evolutionists will say, first there was nothing, then it exploded. The elements were not yet existent, since all the energy from nothing was purely kinetic, active, non-material radiation. What he's referring to here is the Big Bang Theory, which is a load of you-know-what to me. After the cooling effect from the expansion of space and the propagation of the energy from this cosmic Big Bang, the first elements coalesce together as deuterium. I am not a proponent of the Big Bang nor string theory. Neither am I. So even the blind theories and imaginations of non-believers are establishing the truth of the first several verses of Genesis to some extent. But many Nazarene believe creation began with light. Therefore, the periodic 24-hour night or day scheme is interpreted to be day, then night, light, then darkness, as opposed to night, then day, darkness, then light. And there came to be evening, darkening, Arab. And there came to be morning, lightning, Boker, the first day. This suggests a 24-hour period. By interpreting the order of occurrence differently, differences in patterns of behavior can be seen today among the Nazarene. That's what I was talking about in the last video, the division. This has the effect of making a Shabbat day only pertain to when the sun is up, and so night has no pertinence to the Shabbat day. No man can work at night, they will complain, from Yahusha's words at John or Yehuchanan 9:4. To these brothers, Shabbat begins at sunrise. Do we have the capacity to be different yet have love? I feel like we do. Please don't do it because I do it, but study. I rest every week beginning at sunset at the end of the 6th day, sunset. Lou does that, and so do I. And so does my husband. And there follows a twilight of nearly 30 minutes before night arrives, complete darkness. One of my favorite scriptures to quote that establishes whether Shabbat begins at sunset or sunrise is Nehemiah 13:19. Also see context. And it came to be at the gates of Jerusalem as it began to be dark before the Shabbat, that I commanded the gates to be shut, and commanded that they should not be opened till after the Shabbat. The interlinear Hebrew-English rendering of this text shows that before the Shabbat shadowed the gates of Jerusalem, they were commanded to be shut. Just as each month or new moon begins with a dark moon, so the beginning of each day begins at the darkening, Arab, the going down of the sun. Beginnings seem to be a progression of darkness to light. The next section is Shabbats and new moons. Any relationship? Those who revert to the lunar Shabbat system are reading texts like Isaiah 66:23 and perceive an equivalence between a weekly Shabbat and a new moon day. Let's analyze that carefully. And it shall be that from new moon to new moon and from Shabbat to Shabbat, all flesh shall come to worship before me, declares Yahuwah. They explain that the connective word and makes both things the same. marrying them in likeness, though they are distinct from one another. The verse is discussing the span of time from new moon to new moon and another span of time from Shabbat to Shabbat. All flesh will worship Yahuwah all the time. Yahuwah used these terms to gather all time into a kind of net. A net.
There's a car wash. We can bring the cars to.
His worship will have no break in it. Should we worship every moment? Should we not worship every moment? Now, most do not, but those in the world to come will do so.
Roscoe.
From new moon to new moon and from Shabbat to Shabbat, we will worship Yahuwah.
Stop, please.
Forcing texts to say what they aren't saying is what Peter warns us of. And he called it twisting the scriptures. The text does not say on new moons or on Shabbats, but from one to the other. The manna which Yahuwah fed Yasharal for 40 years is related to the week in that it made the arrival of each Shabbat very easily recognized.
Do you have this thing on you?
It's not
Here, I know, it's
pulled
okay.
out. Teachers are saying the hidden manna Yahuwah used. Yahuwah used manna, not the
Let's go.
Yahuwah used manna, not the moon, to teach us when the Shabbat day arrived each 7 days. 7 equals Shabuah,
You gotta
week,
stop.
or Shabuah, week.
Go to the door. Door. Sit.
You have dirty paws, Beanie.
Yeah, see? Sit. This is
Sorry,
why I have
one
to
second.
vacuum all the time. Sit. Because you guys are
Okay.
dirty. Come on, door. Where's the outside? Where do we go outside? We go outside where? Door. So
I'm
sit.
sorry.
Sit.
1 second here.
Roscoe.
Okay.
Stop.
The
Please
manna
stop.
which Yahuwah fed Yasharal for 40 years is related to the week in that it made the arrival of each Shabbat very easily recognized. Teachers are saying the hidden manna,
Let's go. Come on.
Yahuwah used manna, not the moon, to teach us when the Shabbat day arrived each 7 days. 7 equals Shabuah, week. When a statement is made in Scripture which involves a list of several things, some are teaching the items not only connect the words together in oneness. This is faulty interpretation. Not only connect the words together in the sentence, but that the and unites them or marries them in likeness and oneness. This is faulty interpretation. The sun and the moon are used with an and between them. But these two are not the same things. Good and evil, Cain and Habel, Adam and Kua. These are distinctions between things and people. The and in no way makes them the same or equivalent. Sarah, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, were not the same entities, but completely distinct individuals in their persons. Dawid and Goliath were both people, but very different people. 2 different people. In the same way, new moons and Shabbats are distinct. If we told the first day of the 7th moon is a Shabbat, this means by deductive reasoning that the other 11 new moons are not Shabbats, unless they happen to coincide with the weekly pattern established during creation week. To reason from a general principle using logic, we can arrive at what is factual truth by deduction. Deduction literally means that we arrive at our conclusion by deducting, subtracting what is known to not apply. And this principle is how we arrive at a conclusion by reasoning. My enemy's enemy is my friend. This statement contains deductive reasoning. Whosoever is not against us is for us. This is also an example of deductive reasoning. Shabbats are days of rest from work. We would all agree. No one is in rebellion on that issue except those who deny they apply to us. or those who have changed the law. Shabbat is in fact the only day of the week which has its own name. Shabbat means cease, stop.
Hold fire.
Yeah.
Hold the line.
And at the same time, it also means seventh. And as we see in several Hebrew words, which derive from the root, such as, no, it's the first day. The first day, everybody says, is when, that's when the false teachers said Shabbat is.
Not Monday.
No, not Sunday, it's Saturday. Yeah. Friday to Saturday. Friday evening to Saturday evening. Okay, so as we see in several Hebrew words which derive from the root, such as Shabuo, weeks, the Hebrew word for 7 is Sheba, or Sheba, hashtag or number 7651. I want to let the word of Yahuwah speak to us mostly on this. So I want to let you read the following text slowly, and go ahead and strain to make the moon seem to tell us when a Shabbat is, or relate to us how it rules the week in any way. And Elohim said, "Let lights come to be in the expanse of the heaven to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and appointed times and for days and years." Bereshit 1:14. Is there any indication that the moon resets the week each month? We all know that signs and appointed times are signals and moedim. Okay, and we count the days of the moons which establish these moedim. But when we take a leap into applying it to also affecting the weekly pattern...
Bruise her on your neck. Shalom, Kinsley. Oddly, the notification came. What? Why would he even say that?
I don't know.
Dude? He don't say shit like that.
But when we take a leap into applying it, I don't get it either. To also affecting the weekly pattern, suddenly the weeks are sliding around the earth with the moon. And the bad math at the end of each month doesn't seem to indicate there's a problem. Can we find some text from Scripture that explains this bizarre anomaly? This is not asking too much. Does Scripture tell us anywhere we can find the weekly 7-day pattern in the sun or moon? It shouldn't be necessary to hunt it down, because if such a scheme were of the truth, it would be seen everywhere in Scripture. The following is not what Scripture states. And Elohim said, "Let lights come into the expanse of the heaven to separate the day from the night. And let them be for signs and appointed times and for days and weeks and years." No, it doesn't say the lights are for our weeks. The patterns of the week is not seen in the skies. Where it says "and weeks," the "and weeks" is in parentheses. Now watch very closely. Here's a few words which should show the distinction between a new moon and a Shabbat. Why are you going to him today? It is neither new moon nor the Shabbat. 2 Kings 4:23. This is the text describing the events in Shunem concerning the Shunammite woman, her son, and Elisha the prophet. Her son had just died in her lap. But this same text may cause some to make a federal case out of it, declaring it to mean that all new moon days are also days of rest from work. They even go to the extent of allowing new moon days to recalculate the weekdays, without a single shred of evidence from Scripture for doing so. You are exhausted by your many counsels. Let the astrologers, the stargazers, and those who prognosticate by the new moons stand up and save you from what is coming upon you. Isaiah or Yashayahu 47:13. 1 second. All right. In the above text, These moon worshippers are equated with astrologers, stargazers, and witches. Both sun worshippers and moon worshippers will be devoured by fire, which they so fervently honor. Yahuwah will destroy his enemies, and his wrath at the end of days will consume them with fire. The moon was a deity among the pagans, and it ruled their lives as we see it echoed in the horoscopes of astrology today. Crystal gazing, tarot card reading, spell binding, and chants are exploding in popularity all over the earth, as seen by the success of the adventures of Harry Potter. Moon dances and rain dances are performed at powwows, where incantations and circular dancing invoke divine aid in hunting, battle, fertility, or protection against disease. The elect can be drawn away from the sign of the everlasting covenant and deceived into believing they have not been. Certain texts of Scripture seem to be telling us that each new moon is a Shabbat, but it doesn't actually state this in a resolute way. It's only arrived at by extrapolating to broadly infer or estimate from known information. We read the directives to open gates and curtains or to blow a shofar on a new moon. However, there is only one new moon spoken of on which no work is to be done. So yes, there is one new moon out of the year that is, in fact, a Shabbat of rest prescribed by Torah. Can we bear with one another and with love, enduring such a difference between ourselves? I think so. We have to. Colossians 2:16 tells us, "Let no one therefore judge you in eating or in drinking, or in respect of a festival or a new moon or Shabbats, which are a shadow of what is to come for the body of Mashiach." Even here there is a distinction between new moons and Shabbats, and they are shadows of what is to come. A shadow is understood to mean a metaphor or example of something else. It points to a coming reality, like a rough outline. And it is a semblance and is insubstantial. If we condemn one another over an unreal, indistinct pattern, we are wrong even if we're right. If we get everything perfect yet lack love, we fail. Many articles have been written debunking the idea that the first day of each new moon is a Shabbat. Not only have many sincere Nazarene begun to believe each new moon is a Shabbat, but they also reset the pattern of the 7-day week each new moon. This reshuffles the 7-day week into a new beginning each month for these folks. And each new moon begins with the 7th day rest, counting from nothing. What are you doing? Oh, Roswell, stop. He's chewing on the towel.
Come on, dude.
The final few days of this pattern chop the last week of their month off with the abrupt arrival of a sudden 7th day Shabbat. It is not harmonious at all. The pulse of the first week of creation is lost to those who follow this pattern. And so they have become observers of some lunar-based Shabbat system. If the weekly Shabbat is set by the new moon, the arrangement of the week is under constant change. During the week of creation, the moon was brought forth on the 4th day and is simply called the lesser light to rule over the night. It is also used to calculate the appointed times or annual Shabbats, referred to as high Shabbats. The greater light, the sun, is used to calculate day and night. Exodus 16:1 tells us the Yashuralites were traveling on the 15th day of the 2nd moon. How this will be weighed by Yahusha, the righteous judge of us all, is unknowable. He told us that stumbling blocks would come, but woe to those through whom they come. Woe to those through whom they come. Those who ignore the Shabbat each week, the real one, are cut off from Yasharal, and death is proclaimed as their judgment. If the moon were involved in such a vitally important operation as calculating the weekly Shabbat, it seems he would have mentioned it somewhere in his Torah. Even though the 29.5 days in each moon don't divide evenly by 7, this doesn't matter to them. The new moon comes and they reset their week, and it begins the new moon day as a Shabbat. Even though the true Shabbat is supposed to be the 7th day of each week, they let the moon tell them when the 7th day is. The previous week, which the same moon set for them, is interrupted with a sudden arrival of a new 7th day. The first day of the moon is the 7th day of their week. Careful, you could get cross-eyed, thinking about this too long.
Come on, go. Bad boy. Bad.
The week is simply not in the sky. Not in the sky, but set by the counting of days. The greater light determines these days, and all we have to do is count to 7, the number of completion.
No, leave it alone.
How could anyone possibly go for such a system? They read scriptures which make them get panicky and so hunt for other clues. Amos 8:5 brings out a question many claim links the week to the moon. When does the new moon pass so that we sell grain, and the Shabbat so that we trade our wheat, to make the ephah smaller and the shekel large, and to falsify the scales by deceit, to buy the poor for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals, and sell the chaff of the wheat? The context of this verse in Amos shows that these are a list of things Yahuwah finds displeasing to him. The moon worship of that period had led many to observe strange customs, blending it together with his Torah. If we add to the Torah by reading something into the meanings of sentences like Amos 8:5, we can trouble ourselves. According to the Torah, resting on the new moon from work only applies to one of the new moons. The particular new moon spoken of in Amos 8:5 was the 7th new moon, the harvest time of some grain they wished to sell. Here's a list of reasons the lunar Shabbathers are in error. The Shabbats of Yahuwah are listed. Okay, reason number 1, Torah doesn't know about it. The Shabbats of Yahuwah are listed at Leviticus or Uikara 23, 1 through 44, and Deuteronomy or Devarim 16, 1 through 18. These are listed carefully, and only one new moon is designated as being distinguished from the other common new moons as a day of resting from labor. No indication is given that any other new moon is Kodesh or set apart as a day of rest in any way. Further, there is no hint that the weekly Shabbat is related in any way to the moon phases. This is entirely a misreading of the text. Roscoe, stop it!
Stop!
At Yashayahu or Isaiah 66:23.
Bad boy.
If Father Yahuwah wanted us to know that every new moon was a Shabbat, all he had to do was say so.
Go.
By the act of telling us that the 7th new moon was a Shabbat, he told us by deduction that other new moons were not days of rest. And therefore he distinguished the 7th new moon for us. Reason number 2. There are examples of work done on the first day of the moons. At Genesis 8:13, Noah removed the covering of the ark he spent 100 years building. It was the first day of the moon. At Numbers 1:1, on the first day of the second moon, a census was taken of all Yasharal. How odd is that? At Ezra 7:9, this prophet was journeying on 2 new moons. And you're not supposed to journey on a Shabbat. Reason number 3. The Shabbat is the 7th day of each week after 6 days of work. But if you restart each week or each new moon with this Shabbat rest, then it becomes the 7th day of a new week without having a previous 6 work days for that week.
Doing this. I'm sick of
The seventh day begins each of their months somehow and makes the second day of each new moon the first day of their week.
Go.
With an operation like this going on, you would think that our Father would have given at least a couple of sentences explaining the relationship of the moon to the week, don't you think? But he is totally silent about this relationship. Again, these ideas don't come directly from Torah, but are inferred from phrases embedded in sentences. He knows how easily confused we can be, so by not mentioning something this important, it would have to mean he is hoping to trick us. But you all know Yahuwah would not trick us. He would not deceive us. The only deceiver, the biggest deceiver of all, is Satan. Reason number 4. The moon circles the earth in a period of approximately 29.5 days. For thousands of years, the same side of the moon has faced the earth perfectly synchronized with its orbital period and rate of rotation. Scientists cannot explain this circumstance, and mathematicians will tell you that it is almost infinitely improbable to ever develop this way on any planetary system in the universe. And yet, the planet we all happen to live on has this bizarre, unlikely situation. If our Creator can do this, then he could have just as easily made the week fit into the moon's orbit by division, and made the moon orbit in exactly 28 days. Then he could have also told us to watch for the new moons and rest on each one. He could have also told us that each one of the new moons was also a seventh day of the week, which he did not do. Reason number 5. The manna was used to reteach the Yashuralites when the seventh day was, the day of rest, the Shabbat, not when the new moon arrived. During the captivity of the Yashuralites in Egypt or Mitzrayim, it is possible that no one on earth or the Eretz had kept the record of days for the 7-day week. Yashural had succumbed to the pagan system and lost it also. They had to be retaught. This is why the 4th commandment begins with the word remember. It had been forgotten. The manna was provided for 6 consecutive days without fail. There was no interruption in this cycle mentioned. Nor did the new moon come into any references that pertain to the manna. A double portion of manna coming before each new moon would surely have been a signal, and yet there is no record of this occurring. The new moons have no connection to the 7-day week. Reason number 6. The Yahudim have kept the heartbeat of the 7-day week since they were among the Yashuralites being retrained by the manna cycle in the wilderness. There is no record or any hint that a change in this pattern ever occurred. These are among the elect of Yahuwah, and have preserved the words of the Torah, prophets, and writings for us. They are also the direct recipients of the promises, Romans 9:4, and are of the lineage of Yahusha himself. If I am going to trust any group to preserve this set-apart weekly cycle, I would lean heavily towards entrusting it to a group of Orthodox Jews than a group or denomination that may shift on the sand of human counsel. Ephraim, in the scriptural term used for Gentile dispersed descendants of Yusuf and the other lost tribes. A major problem with Ephraim is his arrogance, so the Orthodox Yahudim will tell you, you are exhausted by your many counsels. Too many teachers, too many cooks in the kitchen, I would say. Let the astrologers, the stargazers, and those who prognosticate by the new moons stand up and save you from what is coming upon you. Isaiah Yashayahu 47:13. We certainly are seeing many new winds of doctrine these days. There are even those who feel that the full moon is the new moon, which would mean that when the Yashuralites came out of Egypt or Mitzrayim, They had to travel in utter darkness. There is no end to the development of new winds of teaching. What is most important is that we listen to the advice of Ephesians 4 and not lose sight of our foundation. Many now realize that the Nicolaitans designed a crafty plot of control over civilization. From ancient cultures to the present, the authority over mankind has been a fusion or blend of religious and political purpose. One example is the obelisk described in the book of Daniel 3:18. Often the rulers were worshipped as the principal deity by the people, such as Pharaoh of Egypt or Kaiser of Rome. It had begun this way under Nimrod, but after he was slain, the paganism became occult or hidden, and became shrouded in mystery. The true spiritual nature of what was being done was made to look innocent on the surface for the uninitiated. After Yahusha, people who had his spirit in them spread out in the Roman Empire. The old idolatry was being questioned and exposed, and began to falter. The pagan religious cults began to feel the effects of the truth. Something had to be done to save the order and control which those who ruled civilization had, and their religious paganism was failing. Along came Constantine, a compromiser who could find the middle ground, keeping the previous pagan priesthood and their framework intact. He brought together elders of the Nazarene from all over the Roman Empire to Nicaea in 325 CE, the first council of the Catholic Church. Upon hearing some of the matters being discussed, many elders fled for their lives. The elders who remained helped formulate what later became known as Catholicism, and they adopted the creed or constitution of the Roman Church, the Nicene Creed. This was to fight against what was called the Arian doctrine, thought to be a heresy at that time. Research Arianism. The pagan leaven would eventually leaven the whole lump. Paul told the former pagan Corinthians to purge out the old leaven and be a new unleavened lump. 1 Corinthians 5:6-13. Yahusha also described this at Luke 13:21. The former line of Kaisers were of a family line, but Constantine was a break in that line. A break.
What happened? Hey, you see?
But he became the father of the empire, assuming both political and religious control. The former Kaisers, Tsar or Kaiser, took titles such as Pontifex Maximus, and Pope or Father, and ruled over a body of pagan priests called the Curia, Latin Council. The members of this body were called cardinals from the Latin word cardo, meaning hinge. The idea that they were a hinge of a door suggested that they assisting the high priest of Janus, who was the door to the Elysian fields, the pagans' heaven. These pagan priests assisted the Kaiser, who was the pagan high priest of Janus. So the pagan title of Pope was retained by the man who held the office of Pontifex Maximus, Latin highest priest. This title literally translates bridge builder.
Leave him alone. Lay down.
A reference to this man being the bridge to the afterlife with the deities in heaven, in the heavens. With a framework remaining in place, the central control of the pagan administration could go on, simply blending in with the elements of the messianic belief, but leaving out the elements essential to the obedience of Yahuwah. The pagan organization in place retained the office or title of Pope, the body of priests called cardinals, and even the word curia for council. The Pope was no longer thought of as the high priest of Janus, but to literally be the authority of Christ or Mashiach on earth. The former pagan pattern was brought through perfectly intact. Idolatry, mixed with truth, became clothed in the former framework of sun worship. The main objective was to anger our Creator by mixing the patterns of idolatry together with the truth so that it would become poisoned wormwood. Darkness and light would mix together and be taught for centuries through a pagan framework of priests and a calendar based on idolatry. They didn't even have to put in a change of an address. Rome remained the office of the fourth beast of Daniel, which will remain until the time of wrath. Next time, I will be reading, well, I'll read one more section because this one goes along with this. And then I will read, in my next video, responses to a critic of fossilized customs. Because that's quite a long section. Yeah, that'll be good for my next video. Okay. So, Allah moon worshippers. And this shows the depiction for that.
See, come on. You're so bad.
The moon god from all four sides. Note the crescent moon carved on his chest. The statue's chest in the picture. Allah was the moon deity of the Arabs before Muhammad brought his brand of religion to them. This term was adopted because of its name recognition among the population. You will often notice that the primary Islamic symbol is the crescent moon. Placed above their places of worship in a similar way, Christians use the cross. This name, Allah, Arabs' reference to their moon deity, reflects the pattern of adopting familiar terms and symbols of former pagans. The Celtic or Druid sun deity was worshipped under the proper name Got, G-O-T-T, which was adopted into our English as G-O-D. The Hebrew term is Al, Allah, or Elohim, but translators chose to use a more popular term with name recognition. The Hebrew letters of Allah are Aleph, Lamed, He. Prior to my work on to Lou's work on the BYNV, he used the letter E, Elohim, because he had not yet researched the extent of the damage done to the Hebrew language by the Masoretes. English is the language of the Angles, and the word England is derived from Angleland. The English language is written in Latin letters, which you're reading now. We use Arabic numerals for our writing of numbers. Be glad for this. It could have been Roman numerals. I am terrible with Roman numerals. Okay, so next time I will be reading the responses to a critic of fossilized customs. That goes from page 249 to 254. That should be a very, very interesting lesson. I can't wait to do that one. I will be doing that one tomorrow. And I should have time to read Nazarene and Nazirite. Are these words related? Nazir and Nazir, a crash study, the word Nazir. How can we call ourselves Nazarene? And if I can get that far, I will read the last one on page. I will be reading probably from page 249 to 254 if I have time tomorrow, which I should have time. But I have a lot of work to do tomorrow. We'll see. Yahuwah willing, I will be able to read all of that to you guys tomorrow. I hope everyone has a blessed evening. Yahuwah bless all of you and your families. I love you all. Shalom. And everyone have a restful night. And I hope to see you all on Matt's Shabbat talk on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Love you all. Shalom.